I think we'll give people just another 2 minutes to join. I know we only have an hour, so that'll go pretty quickly, but yeah, just giving people a few minutes. I'm sure it's a tough time of day, everyone, finishing up work and things like that. So in like 2 or 3 minutes, we could get started.
Maybe we can drop in the chat like what TV shows everyone's watching now that we're all stuck inside.
Oh my God. I think I've been watched from ever since this started. Nikita. I've never, when that used to air, I think about a year or so ago, it just never made sense to me, so I never watched it. But I must admit, I have saw Nikita from start. I'll type it in.
All good, Pastor Dave.
It is a good show. I was the same way as Pastor Dave. We were talking about that. You start off, they're like, but you wind up getting hooked and you watch it from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
What's it called? Nikita?
Nikita.
Okay.
It took about 2 months to finish it. It's like 4 series, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
What's it about? I don't think I've ever heard of it before.
Yeah, well, she's a real bad behind. She's very skilled, and she's part of this organization called Division. And what they did, they cleaned up a lot of the bad characters in the government. And so, and the story goes off from there. It's really
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Alex.
2 months. That's some sustaining time there.
Oh, hi, Warren. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Yasmin. How are you?
Hi. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties, but I found it. I'm here now.
No, that's all good. How are you?
What's up?
Good.
What's
How
up?
are you guys? It's good to see everyone.
Everybody.
Hi, yeah.
Hey.
Good. Very good.
Hey there.
Yasmin, I'm trying to contact you.
Did you?
That's Pastor Dave speaking.
Hey, I know. I see. You tried to call me?
Well, last week I think you do get my text, right?
I did get your text. I did.
I tried to call you. I'll try to call you again.
Just call me when we're done. We get off the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I see Eric is watching The Office.
I haven't watched that show in forever, and I just started from the beginning and just rewatched the whole. Almost through the whole 9 seasons.
Oh wow!
Do you have a favorite character, Eric?
Michael, come on.
How would I not know? Then Alex is watching Luther. Is that?
Oh, Luther's really good.
Yeah.
That's Idris Elba. Awesome. Became the sexiest man in the world.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Luther, highly recommend that one. That is a good show.
Oh yeah, I think I saw it.
Is that on Netflix or what's that on?
Yeah, Netflix.
Netflix? Yeah, I know it used to be. I haven't seen it.
What is Luther about?
He's a detective in England, and some things went down that I haven't gotten very far into it, but he solved murders, but it's sort of intertwined with what it's deeply personal. I haven't figured it out yet. The problem of having a 3-year-old, I can only get through it in about 10-minute chunks. And then all of a sudden you get to that point where something bad happens. You're like, oh, pause, look over there, right?
Cool. Oh, hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi. Hello. How y'all doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Hey. Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Hey, Mr. Bill.
Hi, how you doing, yeah? Lisa?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, I'm hanging in there.
Okay, so I think
driving.
I think we have most people, and we can get started. Steph, I made you a co-host, so I think you'll be able to see if anyone enters like the waiting room, and can admit them, please. And we only have an hour, so thank you all for making time, because I know it's a tough time of day, and it is so good to see you. So thank you all for joining. It's tough not being able to see each other there, very often at all. So I'm going to share a screen just because we have some slides that I think are going to help facilitate today's conversation. If at any point you have questions, you can type them in the chat, and Steph will be monitoring the chat. As always, this is a pretty open discussion, so feel free, please, to share any thoughts, questions that you have. Sydney from our team is going to be taking some live notes on the slides, just so we can make sure that we record everything. And as Steph mentioned a few minutes ago, we are recording the video as well. So if that is an issue for anyone, just let us know and we'll edit you out afterwards. But we want to be able to share the meeting with anyone who is interested but wasn't able to attend tonight. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Maybe like a thumbs up if you got it. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Cool. Okay. Well, this is the welcome screen. So tonight, again, we have an hour, and there's a good bit to get through. So we'll do our best to keep moving. But again, please feel free to ask questions. If there's anything we don't get to, we have time. We can follow up either by email or phone call. The conversations don't have to end here in this space, but in general, we're hoping to provide a project update just because it's been a while since we've all been together. Share any thoughts, questions, or feedback on that. We'd like to talk a bit about continued outreach. We've had some conversations with the city and Rebuild, and I'll share more there. The Vare Studio yearbook has been progressing. There's been a draft, and we just want to talk about having a meeting with community members to get feedback and next steps there. And then talking a bit about the idea of the Vare essence in physical space, and how that looks and feels. So there's not going to be any activities tonight. Really, tonight is more about just kind of getting everyone together again, back up to speed, and talking about the next couple meetings and what we'll be focusing on maybe a more activity level in those meetings. As usual, please ask questions. If there's a question that you have, someone else probably has that same question, and anything is open to be asked here, and we'll respond with any information we have. If you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting, just to reduce any background noise, so when others speak, it can the dialogue can be clear. That would be helpful. Take care of yourself. If you want to eat, drink, go to the bathroom, check on the kids, whatever. And then the note about recording, which you already heard twice. So in general, well, I should ask, does anybody have any questions before we get started, just about the meeting and Zoom, or should I just get right into updates?
Updates.
All right, thank you. So in general, the site layout is very similar to where it was the last time we all spoke. We've been working with Parks and Rec and Rebuild, and there have been a number of rounds of submission and feedback. So, thank you to Ian and Eric and KDI and the rest of our team for working with the city on a lot of items that are maybe small changes, but not huge changes to the overall site. So the site layout is still similar to what we've talked about before, with the building taking up the primary chunk of the budget, the large full-size sports field, basketball courts, splash pad, playground area, some plazas, entry and behind the building, and a lot of seating areas. The one budget update to share tonight is that we did finish a pool assessment to find out just what that looks like, how much in disrepair the pool is, and what it would cost to repair it. And so repairing the pool is not an option because of the state that it's in, that it will be needed to be demolished and replaced. And because of that, the cost of the pool is about $2 million for us to replace the pool. So right now, because of that, the pool is not in the project budget, and that is really disappointing because I know we've had conversations in the past about the importance of the pool and water play on site. And so it's a conversation that we're going to continue to have with the city to try and find creative solutions to get the pool back in the budget. But I think, from the city's perspective and in some of the conversations that we've had, that $2 million is obviously very large. And the only ways to kind of get that $2 million like pulled out of some of the design would be to sacrifice other really important parts of the design, like the building or the sports field, and actually some combination of all of those things. So right now we don't have final feedback from the city on where that potential pool budget is, but we're going to stay in contact with them, and we will keep updating folks as soon as we hear more info. But at the moment, it's an open communication with Parks and Rec and Rebuild about ways to find creative funding to potentially reintroduce the pool. If the pool is out, there will still be water play on site. And I think that's something we'd like to talk about in future workshops as we move forward to understand, what that water play looks like, how it can maybe meet some of the community's goals around water play. And we also hope to have future conversations around the budget. In terms of the building layout, I think what has changed here is just kind of some orientation and layout. The city has been pretty particular about where they want to see certain classrooms, where they want to see the offices, things like that, which is completely understandable. But from some of us that, talked about the building layout before, a number of the program spaces have essentially, stayed the same. The basketball court is, it's like the size, it's like 1.5 times the current basketball court, around there, somewhere between 1.25 and 1.5. The gymnastic space as well, I think about like 1.5 times the current size. So those program spaces are growing. There is like a stage space that's been incorporated for a stage to be like a breakdown stage, so it can be taken out and put away. I know we also talked about the potential of including the stage as a permanent space, but for budget reasons, we just weren't able to do it because it expands the building, and then we would lose other parts of site. So again, I think in like 2 workshops from now, we'll have more detailed discussions around budget, and we can talk about decisions around value engineering some things out or other things in, based on a really clear picture of the budget. So once we hear back from the city around the pool, we'll start to have those conversations again. In terms of engagement, a lot of it has gone virtual. I think you all know that we were waiting to get approval from the city to have workshops like these again. So thank you for staying committed to the project in this long absence where we haven't been able to get together. But ultimately, the city asked us to provide a plan for engagement during COVID with respect to both the pandemic as well as the Vare community who we're here to serve. So understanding what might work and what might not work well was a lot of conversation point. What we arrived at was that we could do these virtual workshops. We can support Vare programs wherever possible. So Mike, Carter, and Steph worked together with a few teams from Vare to test a virtual teen camp in June. We're hoping to have conversations with the advisory council again around what the potential youth summit looks like. Is it going to happen virtually, or should we just start to plan it virtually so that when we're able to meet in person again, we could have it in person? We also noticed just from the last meeting that we had on Zoom, how nice it was to just kind of talk to everyone and have some space and time to just kind of hang out and catch up. And so what we're hoping to do is host like a Zoom office hours / hangout time every 2 weeks. And we're flexible about when this occurs. It could be, it could be a Monday at noon, or it could be a Thursday at 4 p.m. We would love to hear your feedback on when you think that is, when would be a good idea or a good time to have those. But ultimately, they're not going to be like project-based with activities. It's just more about getting people together, offering opportunities for social interaction, because since we don't have Vare as that kind of like third place other than work and home, it might be nice to have like a virtual space to interact. And then also project email updates. We're hoping to bring more consistency in our communications between, the Vare community and Rebuild and Parks and Rec. So hopefully, as we develop these conversations around the design moving forward, our plan is for every 2 weeks, and it'll probably be opposite weeks of that office hours hang time, to just send an email update to the community in general, letting them know any updates we have from the city on the project, and how things are moving forward. In terms of the virtual workshops, really quickly, obviously today is workshop 1, where we're just kind of like providing updates and regrouping together. In the future workshops, we will get more into deeper discussions and activities. What those activities look like, still to be determined. But on August 12th, the second workshop, we're really hoping to focus on Vare essence in the built space or in the design and how that comes through. And then the 26th, hoping that we can talk deeper about budget. One area that would be really helpful for us to have your input on is in-person engagement and feedback. So we think that there's some opportunities in the next couple of weeks to maybe connect with the Vare summer camps for youth design input. If there are a number of campers moving throughout Vare, can we design exercises or activities where they can be creative, express themselves, and give input on design or ideas about playgrounds and things like that. And then there's other outreach that the city has kind of asked us to do in person, which, yeah, let's just talk about that a bit. The city wants us to keep getting as many people involved as possible. So I think the big question is really, how do we get more people involved and connected and updated? I know that there are two sides to this. We want to make sure that people can be involved who aren't typically involved in this process. And we want to make sure that the voices of the people who are most deeply connected to Vare and put all their heart and soul into Vare all the time, that your voices are the ones that are represented most strongly. So I think it would be great to have feedback on what you all think this looks like. And also, just do we feel safe about this? So a conversation that I'm having with Rebuild currently is that it might not really be safe to get people together in person to have like workshops or town halls or things like that. So they've asked if we could do if we could mail, if we could send flyers out, if we could do door knocking, if we could connect with block captains or block parties or play streets, things like that. So yeah, I would love, does anyone have thoughts on, so that was a lot. I just talked a lot, I realize that. So maybe we could just backtrack a little bit, and if anyone has questions or thoughts on the design, I would love to hear more about that. And then we'll also have some conversation about outreach as well. But I will go back to the site layout just so we could talk about this if anyone has thoughts or questions.
Hey, this is Pastor Dave. I'm gonna jump right in. Not having a pool, in my opinion, is gonna be a big problem.
Yeah.
A real big problem. And it's almost cheapening the, everything we've been talking about. I just wanted to say that. That's all.
I feel the same way. There's a pool. Single Square had a pool, and then there's Vare. The people in the Grace Ferry section, where Tasker is at, they always went to Stinger Square, and the people 27th Street and on the other side of the bridge will go to Vare. The employees from Stinger Square had to come to Vare and work because there was a problem with their pool. Don't know if their pool opened up, probably didn't. So with Vare not having a pool, there's no pool on their side to service any of the children. A lot of parents can't afford to send their kids to the Y to teach them so that they can learn how to swim. Going to a regular pool, you had people there that will voluntarily help them learn how to swim. No 13, 14, 15-year-old child is going to be in the splash park. So I think we all need to go back to the table and see what can be done in regards to that pool, because that pool is truly necessary for everyone, because even adults go to the pool. That's a disservice to the community completely. It really is. Because it's like everything that we have talked about for the past year plus that we voiced our opinion on, of what we felt like we wanted, has really been shot down. Like in reality, we don't really want a big football field, a whole football field because of Smith. The Sharks want it, Ott wants it, and the councilman wants it. But they're not at Vare every day. They're not. And I think we all need to voice our opinion to Councilman Johnson and the commissioner, voice it and let them know how we actually feel. We're supposed to have the last say so, and we're not getting it at all.
How do we keep saying that we don't want to? How is it that we can keep saying that we don't want to field when the field accommodates 300 kids? How are we going to tell those 300 kids that they have to go over to Smith when they're at Vare? That doesn't make any sense.
How often are they going to use that field? They're not going to not have a whole entire field. They can have half of a field. Smith, MTWB put a lot of money into Smith, and the Sharks are not using it, and everyone else is. That's a disservice because that's a part of the community also. Why should anybody feel like there should be a whole separate field laid out just for them? That's not fair. If that's
right,
the case,
but the field is also not to just
if
accommodate.
That's the case, excuse me. If that's the case,
is not to just
go
accommodate
get the
the
lead
Sharks.
out of the grass over at Shoes where they came from.
Well.
First of all, that's being disrespectful, cutting into my conversation, because I haven't done it to anybody yet. I haven't done it. I haven't been disrespectful to anybody. I'm voicing my opinion. We can agree to disagree, but these are my feelings. These are my feelings, and I know that there are other people that feel the same way. But it's unfair for us, people who don't even use that field. They can have half of a field. Nobody's disputing that they shouldn't have it, but a whole field to be utilized, it's not going to be utilized like that. Smith is there. That's the whole purpose of doing it. That wasn't just for them. MTWB invested that money with no neighborhood input, none from anybody. Not the Sharks, too much of the Hurricanes, Wilson, or anybody in the neighborhood. They put there what they felt was needed for the neighborhood. And if anybody disagreed with it, then it was too late to add or subtract anything. But right now, when we're voicing that some things that we should scale back on, a pool is a necessity. A pool is definitely a necessity. And we need to voice our opinion and let Kenyatta and Kath and Ott know. I don't care who doesn't like it, because that's how I feel.
I think that we're all missing the point that the youth are actually the stakeholders for there. And a football field is actually essential, in my opinion, because it's going to bring in more children who are otherwise not able to come to there or not able to play football because they're not able to make it to Smith. And there's a lot of controversy around Smith, which is why the Sharks aren't really using that field. So for the football players to have a home at there, it will be protecting our church. It will be providing them with resources and another pathway to college. So we have to focus on, it is for the community. It is for all demographics. It's for all ages. It's for the community. But the youth, they heavily rely on there to come for shelter. They come for comfort. In sports it's youth development, essentially. Like, so sports is not just something that I think all the programs should remain there: gymnastics, football, basketball. So it should be accommodating for the youth, I feel like.
In addition to not just football,
I want
the
to jump
field
in whenever
itself
y'all ready.
Hold on. And in addition to, everyone keeps looking at the field being a football field. The whole purpose of us having a sports field is so we can also bring other sports that are not at Vare to Vare. The only reason Vare doesn't have a current soccer team is because some of the things that, a regulated field and things that the things that we need in order for that to be brought there. Children should not have, huh?
I know that's field 1 right here.
Say it again.
No, that's me. I'm sorry. I'm going on mute. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yasmin and Warren and Anthony, could I make one clarification very quickly? The field is, I just want to be clear, and Naima, thank you for sharing. Everyone actually in the city that we've talked to agrees that the pool is essential. And it's about trying to find the money for it because it's so expensive. Eliminating the football field would not give us the budget to include the pool.
I'm not saying eliminate the football field. I'm just saying it doesn't need to be a full size like the Eagles have. We don't need that. We don't. It could be half of a field. I'm not understanding.
Well, Naima, I think if we reduce, even if we remove the field completely, the field is a very small portion of the budget compared to like the building or the combination of the building and the pool. So
I'm not just referring to the field. One part is the field because a lot of us have voiced our opinion in regards to the field. I'm saying with everything, in order for us to have a pool, there needs to be another discussion.
Yeah, and so could we, as a follow-up, if we're planning to talk about budget, if that works for everyone to talk about budget, not the next workshop, but the workshop following, I think that would give some of our city partners time to really look into budgets and see if there's more money that we could find for the project. And so at that time, if there is money for the pool at that time, the conversation I think we would have would be very different than the conversation that we'd have to have now. So maybe as a next step, we get feedback from the city, understand truly where the budget lies around the pool specifically, and then revisit the budget conversation as a whole. Does that sound like a fair way forward?
I think that I respectfully, the Sharks, we service over 400 kids every year, and in addition to that, we utilize fields in the city of Philadelphia from March to December. So there are about 3 months that we don't use the field. I understand that there are budgetary issues, and I understand that people have feelings about the entire field, but this would not only be a football field. And I think that maybe messages may be kind of misconstrued with the fact that we're not just here for football. The Sharks are not just here for football. The Sharks' home base is out of Vare. So I know in the past the Sharks were at Choose, but Choose couldn't accommodate the Sharks in the manner that Vare does accommodate us right now. So Vare is our home base. So I don't know. I just think that we need to all be on the same page as far as what everybody else does. And it's fine to assume things, but when you have factual information to back those things up, then we can kind of move forward and everybody can understand everybody else's role they play.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. I think that is an important part, that the field is about more than just football. And I know that our team, as well as the city, have always had conversations around the flexibility of the field as being used many ways, as many ways as possible for the longest time span throughout the year. So I think we can absolutely talk more about this a few weeks from now when we have some more information from the city. But in general, that is where we're at, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood the cost of the pool really, and the percentage of the budget that will take up. So yeah, we can definitely have more conversation about that moving forward.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
I'm actually at Smith Playground for the summer camp, and I have to say the field is absolutely amazing, and it is utilized by our campers. There's a lot of different workout things that are happening on the field. The kids are using it for different programs, so it is more than just football, and it's actually a beautiful, like it just brings the park to another level. It really is beautiful, and it really is utilized in many different ways. I just wanted to share that I am at Smith, so I'm getting to see firsthand how this field is being utilized. And we're in COVID, so it's not even at its full capacity, but it really is bringing in kids and adults, and it's amazing. It really does. It brings it to another level. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Corinne.
Yeah, can I say something? Can I say something?
Yes.
The problem with Vare is it's starting to be overtaken by adults. And they're taking up more time over there. For some reason or other, the adults have dug their heels into the Vare football field over there.
You mean Smith or Vare, Mr.
I mean,
Bill?
over 25th and Snyder.
Okay.
So it's things going on over there on that field. I mean, adults are taking it over. The way I see it when I come past there.
There are definitely issues that still haven't been resolved with regards to the utilization of that field.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. We've tried numerous times to kind of, bridge gaps and try to work out creative ways to utilize the field for the kids, because the primary usage for all of the rec centers is for the kids. So,
right.
That's the issue we haven't been able to overcome. We do get to utilize it sometimes, but we don't have access to that field. And I just think that we should definitely speak from a position of knowledge.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Mr. Bill. I think that both of those comments are really helpful because they also fall into a conversation that I've had in the past with Mike Carter, just about site access agreements and what it looks like for new programs to come to Vare. And I think a goal of, again, like down the line, once we get some more design resolved, would be to have conversations around what those site access agreements or utilization looks like, so that we can ensure that Vare youth have access. And it's not just adults, especially not adults coming from other areas and other neighborhoods just taking over the field. In regards, and I just want to move on because we will definitely come back to this conversation. I just want to move on in consideration of time. Thinking about the upcoming workshops as well as some of the in-person engagement. We can follow up directly with some of the Vare staff around that in-person engagement. But in terms of outreach, does anyone have thoughts directly on specific blocks, neighborhoods, or groups of people who may have been missed in the early stages of kind of like outreach or engagement that we should try to connect with directly? And if not, no worries. We've been talking with Parks and Rec and Rebuild. So there are some general things that we can do, like we can mail out like general updates about the project so people, especially people who live around there, know what's going on. Does anyone have like groups or people, like contact persons that you feel it would be important for us to know about now so that we can start making connections with them?
Eddie.
I think the local masjids and churches in the areas need to have invitations as well, because they should have input and understanding and knowing what's taking place at Vare and the upcoming projects and stuff at Vare.
Great, thank you, Yasmin. Would it be okay if Steph or I followed up separately to just double check with you, like a list, and get a list of local churches and organizations that we should reach out to?
Sure.
Thanks, Yasmin.
Eddie, are you still in contact with the Eagles, Baron Conwood, football player? Eddie Smith. Eddie, you still there?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the guy from the Eagles, right?
So they are kind of borrowing.
Yeah.
He's part of their program. He's the co-founder.
Part of this program, right?
Make the
And
world better.
that'd be a good guy to contact about, because there hasn't been no input from the Eagles there yet, right?
I don't think there's been input directly from the Eagles at all, no.
Yeah, well, Bonner's doing it, so maybe he should be told about the situation, about the pool, and see what he could do about it.
Yeah, we will definitely have that conversation internally at MTWB as well, because right now our team knows about it, and we are talking with Parks and Rec and Rebuild, and we will definitely pull Connor into the conversation. If we can leverage anything utilizing Connor, we definitely will.
Hey, I was just wondering, did anybody reach out to the schools, boxing gyms around here in Grace Ferry that probably would be able to spread the word about what's going on there?
We have not. If there are specific gyms, again, similar to what we asked, or what I just asked Yasmin, Ace, if we could follow up with you directly to make sure we have a list of gyms that are local, and schools as well, because we have heard a lot from their community that it's not as simple as going a half a mile in each direction from there, that there are like certain blocks, certain schools, and organizational groups that are well connected to Vare, or that are allies with Vare, and others that might not be. Ace, do you have Steph and my email addresses?
Yeah, I think I emailed Steph this morning about an issue I had with the weeds and the grass that were around there. I sent her the email, but the other thing I wanted to say is that I train at a jiu-jitsu gym, and Brandon Brooks trains there. He's part of the Eagles, but he's out hurt, so I might be able to see if I can ask him if he could do something for Vare when everything's finally done and over with.
Yeah, hi Andrew. It's nice to kind of finally meet you, but in person. I'll follow up via email, just to touch base on a couple of things.
Hello, Teddy. If you can get me some flyers, because Terrence still be having workouts, and we have like over 30, 40 kids over there. We can pass them out to the kids over at Smith. So we can pass them to the kids to get to their parents. So that's another means we could go. I could be over Smith and we could hand them out over there, and then at Vare also with the kids. But the majority are going over to Smith. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds great, Coach Ed. We will. We can get some flyers printed, and we could drop them off to you or Terrence. So we'll follow up after the meeting on that.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if I also just reached out to a lot of the coaches directly, like the gymnastics coach, Corinne, or Anthony for football, just to touch base with the parents as well? Maybe we'd still really love youth involvement as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That'll work.
Okay. I'll touch base with you as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So just a quick update about the Vare Studio that I know a lot of folks participated in, and the yearbook and the next steps. There has been a graphic designer that has kind of like pulled together a lot of the content from the studio, including some of the precious objects, scanned photographs, portraits that were taken at Vare, and is really pulled together kind of like a book that will be a deliverable and free to everyone in the Vare community when it's complete. So we're hoping we can have a conversation with community members around how this book is looking, and if people think it is representative of the Vare community, and if everyone appreciates the feel of it, or if it needs to, some things need to shift or need to go in a different direction. So we're hoping to have a meeting for this and we just wanted to understand, should we try and make this a standalone meeting separate from the design workshops, or should we tack it on to design workshops in the future? So we have workshops scheduled for the 12th and the 16th. But that would cause us to kind of like stretch the workshop from an hour to maybe an hour and a half, possibly an hour and 45 minutes. So we just wanted to get feedback on that, because we also want to be respectful of everyone's time and understand that it might not work to have a meeting every single week about the project. So for example, like if we were to potentially meet next Monday to talk about the yearbook, we just don't want to put too much on people's plates. So if anyone has a preference about how they would like that handled, understanding that we want to be completely respectful of everyone's time first and foremost. Does anyone have thoughts on whether it should be in addition to the already planned meetings, or if it's okay to schedule it as a standalone meeting?
I have something on that, George. I think it should be a standalone meeting, only because these meetings have so much content already, and when you come back with the feedback about where we're at with the planning, I feel like that takes away from the just that. You can have a standalone meeting just for the project with the book and the studio, and that would just people want to be interested. But I feel like everybody has a vested interest in the actual rec center and the rebuild, and there may only be a limited interest, which would have a different meeting. That's just my opinion.
Thanks,
I agree.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so we will explore dates for the standalone meeting. So that means everyone's going to get more emails from Steph. But ultimately, yeah, I really appreciate your opinion, George and Lisa. I agree that there's a lot of content covered anyway. And so it would be helpful to have time set aside for the studio. And I think that actually kind of works well getting into some of our next conversation, because one of the things that we heard about the studio when we got started in the very beginning was that, yes, it's going to be nice to have this book as kind of like a deliverable that we can share with folks and that everyone will receive, but also that people felt that it was important that all the content, the photographs, the precious objects, not just end up living on a shelf. And so I think this gets into this idea of like the Vare essence that we received a lot of feedback about when we were discussing, just the design in general in the early workshops. There was a lot of conversation around Vare programmings, what people hope to see at Vare in the future, how they felt about Vare, now as well as in the past. And so really we're at a space in the design where our team can really use your help, maybe even more so than, in some other conversations that we've had before where we were talking about like really big picture items, and now we're getting into, some more detail. And so this idea of Vare essence, if we just build a building and drop a building and drop a football field and drop a few basketball courts, it's not necessarily going to feel like Vare, and we want to make sure that this place that gets rebuilt feels right. And so I think there are a few questions here or ideas, just talking about the idea of like a literal representation in space and what that might look like, and that could be in the form of like visual representation of like people or events or places. And here are just some examples, both inside and outside, of some more literal representation. And then this idea of symbolic representation and what that looks like. And I think probably a good way that we could think about symbolic as a group is that it might not be quite as direct, but it still tells a story. And so here are just some examples of some symbolic design or landscapes, both interior and exterior. And so when we're thinking about that, there are like a number of spaces on site that we would love to have deeper conversation about. And this is kind of meant to set up the workshop in 2 weeks, where ideally, I think we'll break into groups and discuss some different spaces. there are a few spaces that are going to be really critical to discuss, like the front entrance, the building lobby, some seating areas, some signage, and potentially like the opportunity for the community to build things with Alex Gilliam, who's on the call, and Tiny WPA. Some of you have worked with Alex before at Ralph Brooks. And so thinking about, what these spaces are, what they look like, just looking at an entrance to a public space. This is the Discovery Center in Fairmount Park. And thinking about, this is the Discovery Center, this is what it looks like and what it feels like. We would love to have deeper conversation about what does the entrance at Vare look and feel like so that it is representative of the community. Again, it could be literal, it could be symbolic, it could be a mix of the two. Same thing with like the idea for the building lobby. When you walk into Vare and you get, your first impression of the building, your first experience, as well as, the lobby at Vare now is a place where a lot of people congregate and hang out. What does that space look like? What does it feel like? Thinking about seating, or this idea of stoops on site that we've talked about, maybe like coming off the side of the building or being present surrounding other program areas like basketball courts, plaza areas, spray grounds, things like that. What might signage feel like, both inside the building and outside the building? How can that tie the building and the rest of the site together and be representative of the Vare community? And then, just this notion of community built items. What level of interest is there from community members of all ages to be involved in actually building things that end up living on site, or even building test versions of things that are on site temporarily, so that everyone can understand how they're working, what's working well, what's not working well, before like a very permanent solution is determined. So I think, these areas to explore, the front entrance, the building lobby, the seating and the stoop areas and the signage, as well as community build, we would love it. You are gonna hate me. I'm gonna ask you to do homework. I think as like this idea of homework, just asking friends and neighbors how they feel the Vare community should be represented in these spaces. Do people want to see and feel the community represented literally or symbolically? And what does that look like? Because a literal representation in the building lobby, for example, might feel a little different than the front entrance or in seating areas. So 2 weeks from now, that is really going to be the focus of the workshop. Those are going to be the conversation and activity areas. And I think we can break the meeting out into groups so that community members can sit and provide input and thoughts and ideas on any one of these groups that they would like to. And we'll make sure that we have either members of MTWB or members of the design team in those groups as well, to take notes and feedback. So in general, I just want to make sure that we have time to discuss that, because we don't need any decisions tonight, but ultimately tonight is about framing and setting up a conversation from 2 weeks from now. So I would love to hear from community members if these areas, sound interesting, or if they sound like areas that you want to discuss, or are there things missing from here that you would really like to discuss more about, how Vare gets represented in that physical space.
I don't want to be the first one to talk, but I think like that look, that like futuristic look that you guys showed, like that doesn't come off as something that like I would want to go into. Like it almost reminds me of like a gentrified like area somewhere in like Fishtown or something like that. It just looks like too out of place. Like instead of like a brick and mortar type look that Vare has, I feel like even the kids in the neighborhood would feel like they're not allowed in there because it looks so much different than what they're used to. And that's just me, just with the architect of the design that you guys have for like the front of the building. Like I wouldn't want it like me, but like I don't think anybody would kind of want it to be like out of place. Like if you would want it to look like your neighborhood, you wouldn't want it to look like something that might be too high class or like too different that you would feel like you're not welcome. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful feedback.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
I also should have clarified. This is my bad. None of these images are intended to say that this is what Vare is going to look like. They're just included as examples to show an entryway. For example, this building entry, there are a number of elements in this entryway. Some of them might work or be wanted, some of them might not, but ultimately it's just an image for us to start a conversation in a couple weeks around, you know, what should this entrance look like, what should it feel like, and how should people or how should community be represented. So yeah, that's my bad. I should have prefaced with that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't want to talk.
Let's go Yasmin and then Warren. Let's do it.
I differ a little bit. I actually think that we shouldn't necessarily, I don't think it should be that the kids will feel like there's some place that they can't come to because it's not what they're used to. If we want to be technical, what they've been used to is a rundown building that was barely being held together. So I think we should give them state of the art, the best of the best, because they deserve that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you, Yasmin and Mr. Bill. Yeah, I think that's a really great question for us to explore, and especially Yasmin for the group to kind of explore with the design team as well, because I think there are some buildings that are state of the art, and maybe they feel like, I don't know, like sterile or like a little too clean, or they just don't feel, at least like the words that I've heard you all talk about there before, like home and family. And so I think understanding what those words mean and how that can be incorporated so that the building is state of the art and also feels welcoming and feels like home will be really helpful.
Yeah, I just think if you take away, you know, the brick and mortar type, you'll take away like the nostalgia of Vare. Like I know that one woman said that like they deserve like a better looking place and stuff like that, and I absolutely agree. But people, like, they want to go to where they're comfortable, you know, and if it's a place that looks like Vare and feels like Vare, that's the place that they feel comfortable, that's where they're going to go. So I think like if Vare didn't have like the stilts outside holding everything up, people would still like go there. They would congregate there. So I just think, just coming from my personal opinion, is that I think if it looks a little too like, you know, high class, highty tidy, that I don't think the kids would want to go in there because they would feel like they're not allowed.
Can I add here?
Yeah, George.
I couldn't disagree more. Because Vare looks run down, kids don't think it's welcoming, and doesn't have anything to offer them. I think we really can't live in the past, and we're getting a new Vare no matter what. So building a nicer, better, cleaner Vare is just going to make it better for the community and better for the children that come in it. I think the old Vare is great, and it's going to be remembered in the studio, renditions, everything we have. But I think it's best now to make the best Vare possible so the community has a great center. And it does look state-of-the-art. It does look new. It's just something that appeals to all the young people. That's just my opinion.
One of the things that I'd like to just add to this, the primary reason this image is in here, and I think this is already just sparking some really good conversations, even though I hate that word spark, is that the secret about at least the black portion of this wall is that it was actually all built by young adults. So it was actually all built in a workforce development setting. And so one of those questions that we're going to be wrestling with together over the next couple months is where are there opportunities in the making of Vare for people to really have an opportunity to learn and earn. And so one of the coolest things about this building is that it does look a little bit like the Death Star from Star Wars, but is that they were able to pull off, a pretty significant building and really having young people learn significant trades from that and contribute to making.
I just think the picture itself just looks, to me, it looks like gentrification of the neighborhood. That's what it looks like to me.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't disagree or agree with you. I just wanted to point out that one of the main reasons, Ken put it in there to stimulate a conversation to see where people lie kind of both ends of the polls. But the other thing is really about hey, where are there areas where in the making of this building where we can think about creating more opportunity for young people and others.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And one additional point there too is just thinking about pulling individual elements out of the photo as well, which I think is something that we can get into 2 weeks from now. Just for example, this kind of flag that's here or banner that shows the Audubon. I know earlier drawings that Ian had of the building, there were some banners shown that might have gymnasts or basketball players or teen camp youth on them, and thinking about what might it feel like if youth walking down the street were able to see themselves or their friends or family members represented in the physical space that way. So I think these are really good conversations to get started, so that 2 weeks from now we can dive deeper. Warren, did you have a comment that we might have skipped over you?
I mean, I had a couple of comments, but I'm gonna stay on this one right here. With the literal and the symbolic, visuals, I think it needs to be more so like a combination of both. Because the way that y'all got it, it should be either literal or symbolic. Why can't it be, a little of both? Especially with the literal part, with having a youth come up and it's a picture of somebody, on a wall, or something is dramatized, like the one of, I think it was like a lady where it was dramatized on the wall. But, if that was a picture of a kid and they came into the rec, like, oh, that's me, or I know that person, something like that is something that we should be looking towards. And then the symbolic stuff, like people are saying, like gentrification, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at a new building, you gotta think that some kind of gentrification is going to happen. So why wouldn't it be some kind of symbolic thing somewhere? Look at the building. That's symbolic of gentrification itself. So why wouldn't it be some other visuals that have that, meaning behind it also? But just if it's a combination of both things, I don't think one will overlook the other.
Right. Yeah. No, thanks, Warren. I really appreciate that. I also just wanted to make note of Lisa's comments in the chat box, because I'd like to give Lisa time to share if she likes to. But some of the things that she posted are, I think, a little bit in line with what you're saying, Warren, about having both literal and physical representations. So some of the things that she said are just like a sports-themed, arts-themed, youth, family-friendly field, a running slideshow display, an image of a basketball player in dunking mode, and just Vare being prominently displayed throughout the building. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to add to that, or if anyone else wants to add as well.
I wanted to say something when Lisa's done.
I'm done. Thank you.
I just want to say that we should also remember it's the leadership. So whether it's young adults running programs or adults, the building itself is going to be what it's going to be, and it's going to be beautiful, and we're going to make it work. But we also remember that besides the building, it's the people, the community, the volunteers that really will welcome the children. So whether the building is an old version, a new version, it's who's greeting them at the door, who's welcoming them in, who's reminding them that the building is open to them as their community. and that there's events and programs for them will, make the difference as well. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Corinne. Yeah, and thank you, Lisa, for sending those comments to Steph in the chat. That's really helpful to hear. I'm wondering for 2 weeks from now, because all of those comments are, I think, very relevant and very special. How do we best facilitate conversations over the next 2 weeks when MTWB and our team are not present? Because I know Steph emailed out this this file or this PDF to share with folks who were invited to the meeting. Would it be more helpful for us to kind of print some of these sheets and drop them off either at Vare or Smith or somewhere else, just so folks can have some conversations with friends and family members and neighbors, and kind of like speak to images and talk through things, so that 2 weeks from now we can have, an even deeper conversation. Can everyone just let me know if you have a preferred way to have that conversation?
I got an idea.
Okay.
As far as with starting the conversation, with starting the visuals and everything. I know quite a few people that are, in here right now, they use Instagram. Vare has an Instagram page. Go live on Instagram and start the conversation. People use comments that do chime in. They can comment on it, and have someone watching and writing those comments down. And that can be like once a week or twice a week or every 2 weeks, whatever. But going live and having people come in and join the conversation, that's how that conversation can start. And then by 2 weeks when we come back here, you can have ideas that were input from different people.
Thanks, Warren. That is an awesome idea. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time because it's already after 7, and like we all knew like an hour wasn't going to be enough. But there's been a lot of really great conversation here, and I'm wondering, Warren, can I follow up with you outside of this meeting to just get some more feedback on who leads those that Instagram sharing? If it is someone from there, whether it's the advisory council or if there's MTWB involvement. I think just thinking through like the logistics of how we make that happen would be really helpful.
When you end this call, call me.
All right, I'm on it. So just again, in consideration of time, is there anything that anyone would like to bring up as like a note for us to kind of tag for now and either follow up after the call or bring up in future meetings, just because we may not have had time to get to everything here? Okay.
Yeah. So email us. You have our numbers and email addresses, so we're always open.
Yeah, you all know how to get a hold of us. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. It was really great seeing all of you. The next meeting will be 2 weeks from now. There will be plenty of communication in between. Warren, I will call you as soon as this call is done. And I think, we can go from there. But we will follow up individually with folks if they shared any questions in the chat that we didn't get to, or if you send questions to us via email or text or whatever. We will follow up with everyone.
Yeah, I'll send notes out and be in touch about dates and flyers and things like that. So I'll talk to you all soon.
Oh, Lisa, I also love this idea of a virtual meal. I think that's kind of part of the idea of like the hangout or, the office hours that we talked about. Like a meal would be really nice. What meal? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? I shouldn't put you on the spot. Lunch? Okay.
Lunch.
So So as our first hangout, I think if everyone's okay with this, and if you are, just give me a thumbs up. As our first kind of like virtual hangout that doesn't have an official agenda, we will do a Vare lunch within, sometime in the next 2 weeks. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yes, that sounds fine.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all. Yeah, we miss you all. And I'm really glad that we started this conversation back up again, and that we'll get to see you a lot over the next few weeks. If anything comes up, please feel free to reach out.
Great. Have a nice night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, Lisa. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good week.